much of a show session we wanted this to be. Before we ever got into the agenda, we've actually started the deployment. So we're going to cover VMware's vision, and then we'll talk about the Google Cloud VMware Engine overview. We'll dump right back into a demonstration. We'll talk about some of the use cases that we're seeing most common, the patterns that we're kind of seeing Google Cloud VMware Engine being adopted for. And then we're going to go into a demonstration of one of the most prominent use cases, the ability to move your applications out to Google Cloud VMware Engine. We'll check in on that deployment status, and we'll have a quick call to action, but I'm going to call it right now as well. Attend VMworld. It is a virtual session this year. It is online and it is free, so there's no excuse to miss it this year. Hope that we see you all there. So VMware's vision, this is excellent, because the great thing about vision is in the beginning, things that are close to you are very clear. And VMware has been executing on our run and manage strategy for a very long time. But as we continue to make progress, things that were further away on the horizon start to become very clear. And today it is our vision to enable you to build, run, manage, connect, and protect any application running on any cloud, accessible via any device. And a big part of this, as you'll have noticed from VMware, is our move into security, so that protects space. So you're going to see a lot more from us as we move forward and continue to execute on this vision around connect, protect, and build specifically. So when we talked with our customers and they were starting to move to public cloud, they noticed that there were some challenges when they moved to public cloud. The way they operated was significantly different than when they were operating on top of VMware. So our customers demanded that we were in the public cloud, and that when they were using VMware in the public cloud, it was the same consistent experience they expected on premises around consistent infrastructure, operations, networking, and all the way up to a consistent developer experience. But why? Why have we partnered with Google? Why does Google want VMware? No one cloud solves all problems for all customers. We've learned this, and this ultimately is why we established the partnership with Google, and we have brought Google Cloud VMware Engine to market. So I'm excited to turn this back over to Nick to give us an overview of Google Cloud VMware Engine.
All right, thank you, Paul. So I kind of breezed past showing, but we'll get back to showing some more of the details. This is a first-party offering by Google. So this is sold to customers by Google. It's supported by Google. It integrates into the customer's experience with their other Google Cloud services. We have direct networking connectivity within the virtual private cloud network within Google Cloud for the VMware service as well as all the other Google Cloud services. So it's a kind of single pane experience for customers for all of their cloud services from Google, whether it's a workload running in VMware or running in any other Google cloud service. They're kind of able to use a consistent method of procurement, consistent level of support for that. But then we're also keeping all of the VMware functionality that the customer is used to. So just how they're used to running VMware in their on-premise data center, they're going to be able to take those same processes, procedures, tools, their day-to-day practice. I call it the cup of coffee experience in the morning. They sit down with their coffee, and there's something that they do every morning. And we're keeping that consistent for them as they're moving those VMware workloads to Google Cloud. Again, it's a fully Google service, but this was developed in partnership with VMware, following the vision that Paul described there. So this is fully backed and fully supported by VMware as well. So where we have availability, today we're available in 5 regions globally. So Los Angeles and Virginia in North America, London and Frankfurt in Europe, and Tokyo, with Sydney coming on line here within the next month or so for 6 regions, and then another 4 regions targeted by the end of the year: Montreal, the Netherlands, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Singapore. So we'll have those 10 regions. Target is to have them all online and available for customers to be utilizing here by the end of calendar 2020. So some of the highlights, some of the reasons why we feel this is a very strong offering for customers. The first, as we've already kind of referred to, is the setup time. Looking at about 30 minutes for standing up a vSphere environment from scratch. You saw I put in how many nodes I wanted, where I wanted them located, and some basic networking information around the vSphere networking environment, as well as some networking setup for HCX. All that's going to be deployed in around 30 minutes. So the customers are very fast to be able to get their hands on the environment, start setting it up, start deploying their workloads in that. We're running on enterprise-grade infrastructure. We have the architecture of the nodes is we've got 4 25 gig NIC ports on each node. So it's 100 gigabits of fully redundant networking capability there. So what that drives then is, from a networking and storage front, 2 of the NIC ports are dedicated to vSAN, 2 of them are dedicated to workloads. So we're able to offer 4 nines of availability on networking and storage right out of the box. 5 or more nodes running a failure to tolerate of 2 or more on your vSAN configuration, you're at 4 nines. So very easy to be able to get that level of uptime out of the environment. So again, mentioned that this is a first-party supported offering from Google. One of the things that lets us leverage then is the networking connections that customers already have to their Google Cloud services. So if they're using Cloud VPN, if they're using a direct or partner interconnect, we're able to leverage that existing connectivity to their VMware environment. So again, very fast to be able to stand up, very fast to be able to have the networking in place to access that VMware workload. So the use cases that we see with customers, primary one that we're talking to customers with is that whole kind of extend data center or migrate data center. They're looking at getting out of running data centers themselves, so they don't want to expand capacity in them, or they're actually shutting them down. The fact that we're leveraging VMware, which they're operating either most or all of their IT infrastructure in a VMware ecosystem, being able to provide that to them running now in Google Cloud lets them just do a lift and shift of those workloads. Very quick and easy. Again, it's the same tools that they're using, same processes and procedures that they're comfortable with today, same audit and compliance standards. All of that just gets to migrate and kind of a lift and shift move into cloud. So it's the kind of a very quick, easy step to get your workloads in cloud without having to do all of the other activity that you would need to around refactoring and re-architecting solutions. Let's just move it over. Likewise, disaster recovery. Best place to recover your vCenter environment is vCenter. And that's what we're offering. So we're going to be able to leverage all of the DR tools that the customers are currently using. A number of customers running SRM to test out and do either hopefully just tests, but also live recoveries in Google Cloud from their on-prem VMware environment. Also, a great use case is virtual desktop infrastructure. So knowing how things are in the world today, being very flexible in how you're able to offer your remote workforce access to the services and capabilities that they need to be able to do their jobs. That's something forefront of mind for most IT organizations. This ability to rapidly stand up environments, rapidly expand or contract the infrastructure, your VDI system is utilizing is very powerful. The ability to right size in a matter of minutes how much capacity you have based on what's happening in the world, based on contraction or expansion of that workforce. Very compelling to a number of customers that we're working with today. And then the kind of always their goal for cloud migrations is some kind of app modernization. There's something running in the cloud that the customers want to be able to start leveraging. And being able to do that lift and shift, really it's kind of an extension of that extend and migrate work case, but being able to have your VMware workloads now running in direct proximity to all the different cloud services available from Google, customers are able to create hybrid solutions utilizing both native cloud services as well as their existing VMware services and applications, and they're able to create those hybrid solutions that really give them that ability to start modernizing without having to do a full transition and a full move and make that big step all at once. So reviewing, everybody always say, hey, what about the hardware? What are we running on? So these are very high-end nodes that we're running on. This is a hyper-converged infrastructure. So we're running, the nodes are running the Xeon Gold Cascade Lake processors from Intel, 36 hardware cores, hyper-threading enabled, so it's 72 hyper-thread capable. Machines, 768 gig of memory in each one. And then for storage, we're offering it's 19.2 terabytes of all NVMe storage for vSAN with another 3.2 terabytes of cache for the vSAN configuration. Again, it's a hyper-converged design. I like saying, it's a traditional hyper-converged design. Hyper-converged isn't as new as it was a few years ago. So most customers are already at least familiar, if not comfortable with that. And then again, as already mentioned, the four 25 gig NIC ports, again, 2 for vSAN, 2 for workloads, giving that very high level of throughput for both vSAN, which is always important, but also for the workloads. And that's set up fully redundant. We have dual top-of-rack switches, so there isn't a single point of failure within the networking, so we're able to offer, again, the 4 nines of availability from a networking and storage point of view. So along with that, and kind of coming back into what we're able to provide, I've already kind of referred to this a couple times, but we're going to build that private cloud. It's running in the background right now. We'll check on that here in a little bit, but we're looking, 30, 35, 40 minutes for the building of that private cloud environment. Adding hosts to that is 10 to 15 minutes, and that runs pretty well also in parallel. The number of nodes added only increases that time by a minute or two per node. So being able to go from a minimum 3-node cluster to a full 16-node cluster, adding those 13 nodes is still very fast, 30 to 40 minute process. So right now, limit is 16 nodes per cluster and then 64 per private cloud, which is your vCenter managed environment. And then both listing out here the VMware components that are included from Google in the offering, and then the versions. So it's vCenter, ESXi on the nodes, vSAN for storage, NSX data center for the networking overlay, and HCX. We are working on upgrading the environment to vSphere 7 along with along with NSX 3. That is being targeted for around the end of the year, beginning of 2021, for that to be rolled out for our customers. And for storage, we'll jump over to Harold.
All right, thanks, Nick. All right, so as we look at the storage that's provided with Google Cloud VMware Engine, we'll first take a look at the hosts. And so as Nick mentioned earlier, each host has 8 disks. 2 are for capacity, and then we have 6 disks for storage, or the capacity tier. The RAM RAM or the memory that's used on these hosts is a VMe disk that are used for the disk on these servers. So it's highly performant storage that's used for the vSAN capacity. And each host has a raw capacity of 19.2 terabytes. Now, your storage policy-based management, which we'll talk about next, kind of determines your actual total capacity. So for providing protection for your workloads on Google Cloud VMware Engine, we'll leverage storage-based policy management on each of for the vSAN within the cluster. And this can be used to protect many virtual machines, single VMs, or VMDKs on virtual machines. And it's all managed through vCenter. So you'll be managing this similar, to that message that Paul mentions earlier about consistency. We'll be managing it, the same way you would manage vCenter or vSAN on premises, and those will be managed through the vCenter console. vSAN is simple and scalable. And as far as the default failures to tolerate, if you have 3 to 4 nodes deployed in a cluster, the failures to tolerate will be configured to 1, which means you can tolerate one host failure. And if you have 5 to 16 nodes in a cluster, the default failures to tolerate is 2. So you'll be able to withstand 2 node failures and still maintain your data within the VMs in that cluster. All right, next. I'll turn it over to Nick for networking.
Yep, thank you, Harold. So as already mentioned, this service being, running as a first-party offering in Google Cloud, we get to leverage the Google Cloud global network. So the VPC, the Virtual Private Cloud Network paradigm that Google offers, it is a global construct, so it's very easy for services running in different data centers in different locations around the globe to link together. So if the customer is running their VMware workload in our Ashburn, Virginia, the US East 4 location, but they have users who are accessing that in Europe, they could tie into Google Cloud at a local point of presence there in Europe, and then leverage the bandwidth and performance of Google Cloud's backbone network to access those workloads running in that Ashburn, Virginia location. So able to really leverage that high-speed, low-latency global network that Google provides to be able to access those workloads wherever they may be running in the world, and then wherever the users may be as well. So from a connectivity point of view, as I've already mentioned, we're going to leverage the capabilities the customer already has for connecting to their Google Cloud services. So if they're using a cloud VPN or some kind of a point-to-site VPN to access services in Google Cloud, we're going to leverage that. Likewise, if they're running a cloud or partner interconnect, we're going to leverage that connectivity as well. And then over those connections, we're going to be able to use the functionality of the VMware components that we're providing. So being able to do a level 2 stretch for their IP network utilizing HCX and or NSXT, very simple to do, just as they would be able to do between any 2 vSphere environments that they have those running in. Likewise, or along with that, they don't have to have NSXT or HCX on-premise. With the licensing of those components that comes with GCVE, they're able to deploy those edge appliances they would need to tie into their on-prem environment. So they get everything that they need once they have that connectivity in place to be able to use those tools to be able to do those workload migrations to stretch their on-prem networking. Of course, the performance is going to depend on the connection that they have. Things like the layer 2 stretch, HCX migrations aren't supported for production over VPN connections. Just that encapsulating over an encapsulated connection tends to not perform real well. But it is something that we have a number of customers that are doing tests on, and they're testing is the functionality there, and we're able to leverage all that functionality for them over whatever connectivity they're using. So from a management and operations point of view, there is a division of responsibilities. This is a VMware as a service offering from Google Cloud. So we are taking responsibility for the service being available to the customer. So we're handling all of the back-end infrastructure, the data center management parts of the environment, both procuring hardware and then making sure that the data center is up and operational, that the networking is there, that it's up and functional. And then we're also responsible for managing the VMware components that are brought as part of the service. So ESXi, vCenter, vSAN, NSXT, HCX, we are handling all the patching and updating for those for the customer. We're also doing the monitoring of those. Things like the vCenter appliance, we are monitoring to make sure it is up and available. If that monitoring sees that there is an issue with the vCenter appliance, if it is acting like it is hung, we would initiate the restart of that on behalf of the customer. They would not need to open a ticket to Google for that. We would see that as part of our monitoring of the service itself. And then we're also responsible for the connectivity to the other services that they may have running within Google Cloud. So it's from the customer point of view, if they're having problem with part of or one of the services they're running in Google Cloud, whether that be GCVE or another Google Cloud service, they would open a ticket with Google. Google will drive that issue to resolution. If we need to work with VMware on the back end for that resolution, we would be opening that ticket with our connectivity to VMware and working with their support and engineering teams on that issue. From the customer responsibility perspective, they are 100% responsible for what's happening in their workloads. So they own the guest VMs, they own what's happening inside them, they own licensing and configuration of those workloads of everything happening in the VMs themselves. They're responsible for the configuration in vCenter and vSphere for how those are set up. So the resource pools, the storage on vSAN, how that is being set up and configured is the customer responsibility. They are to determine their best practices and what their workloads need for support from that perspective. And then they have the administrative rights and capabilities to enact that, manage that, and maintain that. So that is kind of where their responsibility is with that. And then they're also responsible for capacity management of the environment. They can run at as high or low of a commitment level to the hardware as they want. They can vastly overcommit the hardware, or they could undercommit the hardware as well, depending on the tolerances of their workloads. Again, we're providing the service for them to run their workloads in, so we give the customer full rights and capabilities to be able to do that management and configuration and operate in the way they see fit. So we'll jump into a quick demo of some of that here. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared again. And as that comes up, the first thing that I wanted to check on, and I'm going to start here just for this from the Google Cloud VMware Engine portal, and taking a look that private cloud build task is still going. I'm going to go ahead and jump and take a look at all the tasks that I have running, and I can see that it's at 24 minutes now, and it is setting up VMware services. So it's getting close to getting everything built up there. So to continue showing with this, I'm going to jump back over to my Google Cloud portal, and just to show that this is, again, a fully integrated service in Google Cloud. So it's found here under Compute, in the, as we like to call it, the hamburger menu, from the little icon up in the corner for it. But clicking on VMware Engine, it goes ahead and loads me into the VMware Engine portal. So that's going to go ahead and load up here. And always a little slow when we're doing screen sharing for that. So it gives me a summary of the environment that I have. So I'm building, right now I'm building out that 5th private cloud. The cluster isn't online yet, so it's not counting that, but it is counting all my nodes, how many cores I have. Gives me a very quick overview of the environment that I have. I can take a little bit more detailed look and see here are the 5 private clouds that I have running. The COEPC3 is the one that is provisioning currently. So I have some networking capabilities. Again, this being a hyper-converged infrastructure, there is some control that we still need to be able to set up around that. Things like being able to publish public IPs for different VMs in the environment, establishing my private connection to the Google Cloud services. That is done, actually, part of that process is done in the VPC in Google Cloud, the other half from here. I have these regional settings where I'm able to control internet access and outbound and public IP service inbound for the environments that I have based on the regions. I also have some activities that I can see, again, if there are any alerts in the environment, any events that have transpired. Coming back again here to tasks, just we'll see real quick if we move to another stage in the deployment here. Still setting up VMware services, but the real proof here and the real capability, and I'm going to go to an environment I already have up and running. I'm able to see the configuration I have for this private cloud. It's 3 nodes in a single cluster. The networking setup that I have established. One of the big things here is this change vSphere privileges capability, where I'm actually able to escalate to full administrative rights within vCenter. Since this is offered as a service, we do block out some capabilities for administrators out of the gate, just because they're areas that we're responsible for. We'd rather customers not make certain changes that could impact the availability of the service. So we block that away. But what we do allow is this full escalated privilege capability. So any tools that they're used to using, any solutions that they want to deploy in their environment, they're able to do all that with this capability. So if they're running a specific version of certain tools of, say, SRM in their environment, and they want to deploy that here, they would be able to do that exactly the same way in vSphere that they're used to doing that deployment once they have escalated these privileges. So a few other things here. We can tie in to their DNS configuration so that they're able to obviously, integrate in directly. But what I really want to do here is go ahead and launch my vSphere client to show how that's going to work. This is probably a fairly familiar screen to most. Likewise, this would be as well. And I'm pretty sure that everybody on the session here is going to be fairly familiar with the vSphere client. So again, full capabilities are available here by default, which I'm still at. Some things are blocked out. You don't see the management resource pools. Just as I said, those are blocked away for their protection. But I do have those full capabilities here. And as you can see, just to pull down a few menus, we do have in this environment, we do have Site Recovery Manager deployed already, so I would be able to come in and go in, do whatever setup configuration I wish to there. Likewise, vRealize operations, the rest of vRealize suite is fully supported. The typical you would expect to see that you can either install it raw to this environment or tie into your existing infrastructure that the customer likely already has. So again, it's I like to say it's at this point it's just VMware. So exactly what the customer is used to using, just the same way that they're used to operating their environment. So again, you can see all the different configurations, the different settings that they would have available. Like I said, all those capabilities are here and waiting for the customer when they get their environment up and running.
All right, so next we'll go ahead and talk about common use cases, first of which is data center and application mobility. Now, usually when customers get ready to move on that journey from on-premises to the cloud or any type of migration, they wonder how are they going to get their workloads to that destination. And so when you're talking about VMware-based clouds, and in particular with Google Cloud VMware Engine, we'll be able to leverage VMware HCX, which is included with Google Cloud VMware Engine, and we can use that to perform the replication as well as network connectivity. And one example of the network connectivity in relation to this service is being able to maintain IP addresses when you're migrating from on-premises into the cloud to basically speed up and simplify the migration process when you're moving to Google Cloud VMware Engine. So HCX provides connectivity, replication, as well as migration services for customers moving to the cloud. HCX Advanced is included with this solution, and so we have several rich set of features here. As I mentioned, we'll be able to do live migrations, so you can move VMs live to the cloud, bulk migrations to reduce failure or failover to a new cloud, as well as the network extension appliance or network extension capability to provide layer 2 extension between the sites, enabling the maintaining IP addresses for workloads as you move to the cloud. All right, I'll turn it over to Nick for the AC application mobility demo.
All right, let me go ahead and get my screen shared back again. All right, so as I mentioned, this is going to be a very familiar experience because this is, and I'm jumping into HCX just as a customer would have if they were operating between two of their own managed data centers. Just so happens that this one is running in Google Cloud. So we can see all the configuration here in HCX that you would expect to see. I have the two environments that I have paired with the service mesh set up between them. Again, all this we'd already set up and configured this prior to the session, this being in the operating environment that we have. But being able to come in and do a migration, I'm actually going to do a reverse migration here because I'm expecting my usual, my machine's on the other side, so we'll go ahead and bring him back over to this environment. And this is your, again, if you're familiar with HCX, this should all be very familiar because this is HCX as your customers would be running on-prem. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do a vMotion migration, but you could see that I did have the other options, and I'm sorry, I'll go back and highlight that a little more, but I can also do a bulk migration or a vMotion migration. I want to just say, let's run this as quickly as we can, and need to time my destination network here. I'll go ahead and validate, make sure I got everything. All right, and so we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that migration. This is going to go through the typical vMotion migration workflow that HCX is doing. So it's doing some of its preparatory work. What we'll see
right. So let's take a look at the questions. Yeah, sorry, we heard some interesting things might have been going on, so apologies for anybody who had it, any weirdness. Hopefully everything is good now. So let me go down past. So we had one question, Nick and Harold. One of the questions, do the NICs support SRIOV? Nick or Harold, can you hear me?
We're live.
Yes, we are live. Oh, Harold, did you hear the question? Do the network interface cards support SRIOV?
Yeah, so Nick and I were confirming that, and it looks like no, that's not on the service today.
Correct.
Perfect. What other ones do we have?
So there was another question about would the service be available, or when will it be available in Iowa?
So Iowa is on our roadmap for first quarter of next year. So there's still some planning involved with that, but that is what we're currently targeting.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. And then a general question. What reasons would you cite for companies deciding against maintaining their own data centers? From Mike Morgan. Thanks, Mike. There's lots of reasons for this, I would say, but obviously your own unique situation will kind of rule. Economics can be one thing. It's very expensive to run your own on-premises data center, especially if you're running your own data center and you have to keep up with all the maintenance. So the cost and economics of a data center versus just the infrastructure to run your applications can be quite extensive. Agility. So many people have been moving towards the cloud because they want to get out of that kind of buying cycle where they're designing for peak usage, which really means they have to design with some type of overhead of 20 to 25%, or maybe even more, depending on the variance in performance that you need across the year. And of course, one of the biggest benefits of cloud is buy what you need for steady state. And when you need to go above that from a capacity and performance perspective, then and only then scale up. When the event passes, scale back down. This is one of the big scenarios that you really just can't do it on premises. You can, but it's going to cost a lot of money and you're going to have a lot of resources sitting idle. So I would say there's several reasons. There's also sometimes reasons why things should stay on premises. And this is why, of course, we have the ability to still do on-prem as well as do it in the cloud. But what we're really seeing is, especially in this kind of pandemic situation that we've been in, people haven't been able to travel to data centers. In the beginning of the pandemic, people couldn't actually get access to the floor. So we actually had human resource challenges with actually accessing physically the data center if you needed to change out a component or something like that. I would say lots of reasons, but if you have any more specific questions, let me know. Those are some of the highlights. Nick or Harold, anything to add there?
No, I think you pretty much, hit the nail on the head there. It's, really about that elasticity and being able to burst, the on-demand and using what you need and also having it on demand when you need it, or, a lot of those key capabilities that services like Google Cloud VMware Engine brings to customers.
Yeah, and getting away from, most companies' core business is not running a data center. And moving IT out of swapping hard drives and, doing power and cooling analysis and focusing on the business needs and how the IT can support the business functions, getting that shift is another major reason that we're seeing, that customers are wanting to do that, is why they're looking at getting out of managing the data center. It isn't getting rid of their IT department. It's refocusing their IT on what's actually supporting the business instead of supporting the stuff that supports the business.
Makes sense. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Harold. I work for a university. Is there any sort of training educational platform for students to learn about data centers, SCADA systems, cybersecurity? I don't know about that one for this call. But generally, there's lots of education material out there. I would say in general, from a VMware perspective and Google, both of our companies offer lab environments to go test a number of different scenarios around security as one scenario, I would say. We have hands-on labs for VMware, and Google has quick labs. Google Cloud VMware Engine has not fully came to quick labs yet, but that is actually on the roadmap for either sometime later. Is that a this year, Nick, thing, or maybe beginning of next year? Do you know?
We're trying to get it into this year, but there is some timeline to that, so it may slip into the beginning of next year.
Great, thank you very much. Is there only one instance size right now, and will that change?
So yes, there is just the one instance size right now. Makes life kind of easy because, when you only have one SKU, you only have to worry about one. But we do have, for more further out roadmap, where we do have additional hardware types that will be offered with the service.
Okay, perfect. HCX Enterprise, is HCX Enterprise supported, Nick?
Yes, it is. The licensing that comes is not enterprise, but that can be upgraded. That's something to work with both your VMware and Google account teams to be able to get that put in place.
Okay, perfect. Am I missing any other questions, gentlemen? Scrolling through here.
Yeah, I think we answered all the ones that were asked in the Q&A section.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, please let us know if there are any further questions. We greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, Paul, it looks like there's a follow-up on the university question. Azure AWS allows students to do live environments and donate hours. So Google does have similar things. You can go out as an individual and sign up and get $300 in credits on Google Cloud. If you do try to go with VMware Engine, that's not going to last you very long. But for the other cloud services, you can get quite a bit done with that. So that is an offering that is available from Google Cloud, not specific to VMware.
Great. Thank you for the follow-up. I think that's all the questions. So we'll give a moment of pause. Nick or Wade, do you have any thoughts you wanted to add here at the end? Okay. Sounds like no. I just want to remind everybody, and we'll kind of watch the question list, but remember, I've said it a couple times already today, VMworld. Please go. This should be an amazing chance for people who normally don't get the opportunity to travel to take part in the experience. We have a number of great sessions. You saw the 2 sessions that we have specifically listed for Google Cloud VMware Engine. Google is also a core theme in our multi-cloud story. So please check out the specific Google Cloud VMware Engines. Check out the sessions on multi-cloud. Thank you very much for your time here today, and we greatly appreciate you. Please reach out to either Google or VMware, and we'd be happy to help you on your journey to the cloud. Thank you very much.